Welcome to the Darkstream. VoxDay, VoxDay.blogspot.com, and Infogalactic News. Thanks for stopping by. It's been an interesting day. As you're aware, there's a group called the Oathkeepers. The Oathkeepers are supposedly, they were originally founded by a group of soldiers who said that they were going to keep their oath. They were committed to keep their oath to the Constitution, and they were not going to obey any orders to disarm the American people or to move against the American people. Now, this is a good thing. It's a good idea. I mean, how can anyone who is freedom-loving or who respects the U.S. Constitution not support that, right? The problem is that they also got the police involved. So it went from being a military thing to a military and police thing. I'm not sure that that was such a good move on their part. But the real problem is that a lot of the sort of individuals who are join this organization, they tend to be civic nationalists. You know, to the extent that they're anything beyond basic bitch conservatives, they are alt-right. Now, there's nothing intrinsically wrong with that, but the first sign that there was really a problem with them was when they were careful to, they shut down and they made a big deal about distancing themselves from the alt-right, despite the fact that they were claiming to be for free speech. A little bit tricky there. Then there was a situation where they allowed an illegal alien to put an alt-right individual in a chokehold, and they were cheering the illegal alien on because they disapproved of the message that the alt-right guy was broadcasting. Now, keep in mind, these are the people who make a very big deal about being champions of free speech. And the thing is, it is tricky because one thing that a lot of people have noticed is that people from the military tend to have an excessively romantic view of race relations. And it makes sense, because first of all, these guys are integrated. And integration in the U.S. military has, for the most part, been very successful. So there's a lot of military guys who have experienced successful integration, and they don't see any reason why it can't work that way in civilian society. Well, it's pretty simple. Civilian society is not run like a military camp. You don't have military discipline. You don't have orders that you cannot turn down and reject. And so, also, the type of minorities who are capable of getting into the military means that you're dealing with the talented 10th. So, the blacks in the military tend to be much more intelligent than the average. They tend to be much more disciplined than the average. There's like somebody said, there's an IQ floor in the military. And so the whites in the military tend to have a very false idea of what the blacks and Hispanics in particular are like. But they think they know better because they have these, they have their black brothers, their Hispanic brothers, and that's understandable. That's great. But, the weakness of the military we're already seeing, because what happens when the chain of command orders that they're going to all put on red pumps, or that they're going to accept women, or that they're going to accept homosexuals, or that they're going to accept transvestites, or transgenders, whatever you want to call them. the military accepts all of that and enforces all of that. So they have a perspective that is a little bit twisted and a little bit idealistic and a little bit unrealistic. So that's why they dislike the alt-right so much. That's why they claim that the alt-right is white nationalist, white supremacist, all this kind of crap. So what happened recently was that a old Oathkeeper named Navy Jack, he's like something like 70, I hear, he attacked the alt-right and attacked white nationalism, in addition to a few, a few ritual swings at Antifa and Black Lives Matter. But the whole point of it was to attack the alt-right. And so, I wrote a response to that. Not so much a direct response to that. I was mostly quoting this absolutely hilarious parody that some commenter, some alt-right commenter, had put on his site. If you haven't read it, you have to read it. It's on my blog. It's called The Oathcucker's Tale. I copied the comment over, the entire comment over, just because I figured it was going to get deleted before too long. It's really fun. But what was interesting was that in the midst of the discussion that was going on, the blog, somebody left a comment on my blog, VoxDay.blogspot.com. And I'll read it to you. It's dated June 27th at 6:40 p.m. The name is Black Oathkeeper. First off, I'm an Oathkeeper and a black conservative. And if any of y'all said filth like blacks are inherently violent to my black face, I'd knock your teeth out. P.S. All y'all from VoxDay who spammed our website today, just know we have your IP address and have passed it along to the authorities. Many in law enforcement are very interested in racist groups like the alt-right. Now, how many of you hit the hearts if you think that sounded fake? I thought it was fake myself. I was sure it was fake. Not only that, but a number of the commenters, a number of the Dread Elk commenting on the blog actually started doing parodies of it, like similar parodies of it. It was really funny, and I didn't really think twice of it. I didn't think twice about it. But then the site master went and checked out the IP address, and it turned out that the IP address was from somewhere a little unusual. The IP address was from a place called Hamilton, Montana. Now, I've never heard of Hamilton, Montana, but it doesn't sound like the kind of place that some random... I mean, how many black people are in Montana anyhow, right? So I'm thinking, okay, that just sounds weird. So I decided, well, maybe Google will have some connection between Hamilton, Montana and the Oathkeepers. Well, there was, actually. Here's the interesting thing. The connection was a member of the Oathkeepers board of directors. They have a board of directors, and it turns out that one of those directors is actually from Hamilton, Montana. So I looked it up, had his name. His name's McWhirter. Turns out he's black. So, but this is still, this still could be an accident. This could be a coincidence, right? I mean, you never know. So I took it one step further and checked the white pages, And it turns out that this Greg McWhirter actually is resident in Hamilton, Montana. He's on the Hamilton, Montana police force. He previously served in the Indianapolis police, and he's on the board of directors of the Oathkeepers. So now this is not conclusive proof, but it does look pretty suspicious. So what I did was I wrote to two of the founders of the Oathkeepers, Stuart Rhodes and Jay Stang. They're both on the board. They're both founders. They're both on the board of directors. I wrote to them and said, "Look, this is the situation. These are the threats we have. This is what was said, and it appears to have been by one of your board of directors. Is this something that you guys condone? And would you please look into it?" To their credit, I got an email back from one of them saying, this is not what we do, this is not what we stand for, and we will look into it. So presumably they're going to, and he said, we will pursue this at the board of directors level. So it'll be interesting to see what comes of it. Presumably they will ask Mr. McWhirter if he did indeed leave that comment, or if someone might have done it in an attempt to make him look like that. I'm not blaming anyone at this point in time. We do not know who actually is responsible. It's entirely possible that someone did it to make it look like this guy was responsible, and he actually had nothing to do with it. I don't know. I don't know him. I don't know any of these people. But this is the kind of thing that you have to be prepared for. This is the kind of thing that you need to be ready for. It doesn't matter. Obviously, Oathkeepers are not. You might consider them alt-light. But this is the kind of thing you don't let pass. This is the kind of thing you have to call out, because it's really not acceptable. It's not acceptable for people to be trying to engage in these sort of intimidating tactics. We already know that the government is spying on the alt-right. We already know that they're probably watching this and other periscopes and podcasts. I wish them luck keeping up with Mike Cernovich. But anyhow, we'll just have to see what happens. But I do think that regardless, it's important to understand that whatever you do at this point, we're in the middle of a culture war. And you have to take it seriously. You have to pay attention to this sort of stuff, because people are increasingly engaging in tactics that are, if not violent, are at least threatening violence, and so you have to be ready for it. Now, I'm not concerned about this in the slightest. It was 2001 when I first was the brunt of a mass email attack, including death threats and all that sort of thing, that was organized by the Council of American Islamic Relations. So, I'm accustomed to this sort of thing. It's not a big deal, but you have to be prepared for it. And that's something that a lot of those of you who are out there, who are going to these rallies, who are going to these things, these public events, you need to be prepared for the fact that some people are already at the point that they are willing to start engaging in violence. So you have to be prepared to defend yourself. You have to realize that people are no longer playing nice. They are no longer playing civil. We are now in the age of identity politics. So, well, you know, a lot of here's the thing. A lot of people who don't have never been involved in any sort of violent sport or profession don't understand is that being thin-skinned has nothing to do with being tough or not. There are tough people who are thin-skinned. There are people who are not tough who are thin-skinned. You know, just because somebody's thin-skinned doesn't mean they're not tough. But yeah, in general, the police are not... Molto bene, grazie. Police are not good debaters. They are accustomed to delivering lectures. But what Americans have to understand is that they are now in the middle of a game with Aztecs, who are not afraid to ethnically cleanse entire cities. You know, Africans who tend to be willing to resort to violence fairly readily. Asians who are insanely brutal by European standards. I mean, you know, they torture dogs for fun before they eat them in China. Okay? The whole idea of the model Asian minority is a myth. You know, they do not. There's a whole. I mean, you might think I'm exaggerating. I'm not. Do not look it up on the internet. Just trust me on it. You know, there's a whole week-long dog meat festival that's going on right now in China, and they believe that the more that the dog suffers, the better the meat tastes. So, you know, do not be misled in thinking that Asians are more compatible with Western civilization than Asians or Africans or whatever. They have their own civilization. Eastern civilization. I've lived in Japan. It's a very interesting, fascinating civilization. I have tremendous respect for it. But it is not Western civilization. The irony, of course, is that it actually probably makes the meat taste worse. You know, if you think about, I mean, the general rule when you're hunting is that, you know, you want the deer taste better if they're killed quickly. So, and so, anyhow, the point is that, you know, any alt-right group, like the Oathkeepers and so forth, is probably going to split at some point in time, because some of the part of the group is going to acknowledge the trend and go with the trend. The trend is the alt-right. The trend is nationalism. The trend is identity. The trend is locality. But, as I said last night, there are certain factions of the alt-right that cannot make that transition because of their own identity complications. Or possibly just because of their own strong ideology. So, anyhow, that's my story about possibly being attacked by the Oathkeepers. In other news, those of you who belong to the Castelia Book Club, we will be sending out an email tomorrow. I'll give you a little heads up. The book that we are launching is Martin Van Creveld's first novel. He's published, I think, over 25 books, some of them classics. But this is his first novel, and we are very, very proud to be the ones publishing it. The name of it is Hitler in Hell, and it is Adolf Hitler, post-mortem, reflecting on his life and world events post-World War II from hell. It's going to be a big book. It's going to be a good book. And in fact, if you want to get a jump on it, it is actually available on Amazon right now, and I think the cover is going to blow you away. The email will go out tomorrow morning. It's about 350, 400 pages. And yeah, it is the foremost Israeli military historian's perspective on Hitler, and I guarantee you, whatever it is you expect, that isn't it. It's a mind-blowing book in a number of different ways, and it's going to be fascinating to see what people are going to make of it. This is a book that even I probably wouldn't have dared write. But Martin has he has no fear of anything, and he's also got a very puckish sense of humor. So anyhow, I think that you're going to. I highly recommend it to everyone because this guy. It's on Kindle, yeah. It's got. You have to keep in mind, this guy is one of the foremost writers on war. And so the audio version will be coming eventually too. But tomorrow's the big launch, and I'm not sure what you meant by Castelia release. If you mean it on the Castelia House bookstore, it'll be on the Castelia House bookstore tomorrow. And it doesn't matter if you happen to buy it tonight from Amazon. That's fine. If you're in the book club, you still qualify for the free book. It's all on the honor system anyhow. We send it out. The links are live. We just basically say if you buy the book within the first 4 days, go for it. In most cases, we prefer for people to buy it from our bookstore. We want people to get used to buying from our bookstore. But in this case, we like the idea of driving the rating up. Frankly, I think nothing would be more satisfying for both Castelia and for Martin if we were to have the #1 book in Jewish fiction, which is one of the categories that it's set for. So, but yeah, we have but we do have our bookstore set up. So if you prefer to buy EPUB, or if you simply just don't like to go with Amazon, Castelia is there. So yeah. We sell our ebooks for only $4.99, so you could practically buy it from both. But we'd rather have you just buy one ebook and then wait and then buy the hardcover when it comes out, or the paperback in this case when it comes out. But we're very proud of this book. If you go to Amazon, you can see the cover and you can see what I mean. It was kind of funny. Martin was actually at my house a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about the different cover possibilities. I said, "Hey, I've got this idea, but it might be a bit much." And he said, "Okay, well, what is that?" I said, "Well, let me show you." And so we went out to dinner, and I pulled out my phone. I had the image on it, and I showed him. And he just laughed. He said, "I think we have to do this." I said, "You don't think that it's going to, ruffle a few feathers?" And he said, "I don't care." He said, "Besides, I'm a Jew. What can they say?" So, So anyhow, it's going to be, I think it's going to be pretty interesting. No, I don't believe that the book is going to get banned in Germany. It would look tremendously bad for the Germans to ban a work by Israel's foremost military historian. But we'll see. But the thing is that, and that's why I think it's going to be so fascinating for people to read this, because Van Creveld is nothing if not honest. He says what he thinks. I mean, this is a guy who has challenged every institution that I can think of. I mean, we're talking the Pentagon, the IDF, you name it. He is perfectly willing to say what he thinks and criticize anything that he thinks. And he doesn't believe that I should just say he has a balanced perspective that many people would not expect coming from somebody whose family went through the Holocaust. And so that's why I think that it's going to be absolutely fascinating to see how the book does and so forth. So, like somebody just said here, it's hard to develop original insights if you're preoccupied with defending a pre-approved narrative. This is somebody about whom Jerry Pournelle said is a necessary addendum to Clausewitz. So we're not just talking about a great military historian. We're talking about somebody who is one of the finest military minds of all time. I mean, if you're a necessary addendum to the second most important military thinker in history, you're dealing with a rare genius. His best book is The Transformation of War, and Technology in War is also excellent. I'm partial to A History of Strategy just because we published it. It's a very small summary of all the great historians. It's more of a starting point. And he's also got an interesting work called Equality, the Impossible Quest, which we also publish, which is basically the history of the concept of equality. It's meant to be kind of a counterpoint / addendum to to Mill writing on justice and so forth. So anyhow, I would highly recommend that you pick up Hitler in Hell. Like I said, if you're in the book club, you'll still want. Oh, okay. The name of the author is Martin Van Creveld, and the title is Hitler in Hell. You still need to open up your book club email, though, tomorrow morning, because it will have the link to the 1 or 2 free books that we will be giving away if you purchase a copy of Hitler in Hell before July 1st. So, anyhow, we'll also have some new announcements soon about some authors that we've been signing. But we'll save that for another night. Thanks for tuning in. We'll look forward to seeing you soon.